by this time, it became clear that there were 13 companies who were seriously interested in competing for selection of their symbology. Among them, Pitney Bowes, Svita, Zellweger, RCA, IBM, Charagon, and others. And we obviously were quite interested in having as many as possible. There were all shapes and sizes of symbols. There were color barcodes. There were various barcodes. There were bullseye barcodes. There was the IBM, which was a barcode, but a special version. And there was OCR, actually, was proposed. And so we said, all right, here's first thing we needed to do was we needed to take off the table the issue of bottom marking. And although I have to admit that we didn't have sufficient conclusive evidence that you could do so, and it was really more of a decision necessary to ensure support of the manufacturer community. Keep in mind, our original presentation said we would make every effort to minimize the pain since there was no benefit. So we rather, at that point, announced that bottom marking was not going to be required when the symbol decision was made. We asked each of the proposing equipment manufacturers to do two things. One was to submit a print specification for their symbol, whatever they wanted. They set the tolerances, they set the contrast requirements, they set the line irregularity, they set the void content, they set all the things that you would need to print a symbol. We said, thank you very much. And then we sent all of those specifications with the help of GMA, to all of the manufacturers that were willing to now give us an estimate of printing that symbol with those specifications on their packages. So this was a gigantic industry-wide effort to come up with costs. Now, I'm sure you can appreciate that they didn't come in with low balls. On the other hand, if they were high, it wasn't an overwhelming problem because the benefits to the retail industry were extraordinary. And they came back, and we said, that's great, thank you, and I put that into the model. So now we had pretty good information for the front end. We had pretty good information about the cost of equipment. We had pretty good information about checker bagger accuracy and shrink reduction. We had pretty good information now about symbol marking. We weren't quite there yet, but the veracity and completeness of our model was improving by the month. And so we said, there's one other thing. We are conducting a test at the Battelle Memorial Institute, and we would invite you to participate. You pay for your own test, and we get the results. No one else gets your results, but we get the results. And oh, by the way, we're going to print up symbols in accordance with the maximum tolerances that are in your print specification. And we're going to measure productivity, and we're going to measure accuracy. We're going to measure all the things that will be important to a retailer in achieving the end objectives. And those tests were eventually conducted, and the results were made known to the Symbol Committee. I don't think they were made known to anybody else. So we now had another level of information for our model, and that is the productivity and error and error detection and correction processes available with the varying symbol technologies and associated equipment technology at the time. That was fundamentally important in the selection of the final symbol. Now, I would say this, that there were other tests going on. There was the Zellweger Migros store test. There was the RCA Kroger store test. There was also a store test out at Safeway in California. And some would say that they played extremely important role in our symbol selection. I frankly don't remember that. I don't remember it playing a major role because making certain that they were identical and comparable test results was all but impossible. But I would say they were indicative and supplemental to the Battelle tests, which were controlled engineering tests. Anyway, that's how that happened. And then there was the Coke problem, and I'm having fun chatting about that today. And there was a big meeting, I forget where it was, maybe it was Washington, where the whole issue of symbology and printing and so forth came up. and a representative of Coke stood up in the meeting with however many thousand people, said, you're using a red laser, and our colors are red and white, and so a red bar is going to look white and there's going to be no difference, so the symbol won't be readable, and sat down. And then there was an explanation, well, we're going to work it out, and the guy stood up again, and he said, well, I want to remind you that our colors are red and white. And I think he did that 3 times, and the meeting was sort of getting a little bit frayed, but fortunately, I guess lunch came up, and Joe Woodland and other IBM guys and Reynolds Aluminum, who made the cans for Coke, got together in the wee hours of the evening, and they said, you know what, he's right. However, if the can were silver, the silver would be reflective and it would look black. So if you printed the inverse of a symbol on a silver can, then you get a symbol that is readable by the scanners, by the red laser scanners, and all is well. Coke wouldn't have to change its colors. And so, good news. And I learned really the details of that just today. But I knew the problem. I just didn't know how it got resolved. Now the model continued to be underpinned and enhanced. And we came up with a set of conclusions as to what level of implementation would be required to generate $40 to $50 million of net industry savings after the cost of capital for the equipment, after elimination of price marking on the individual items, after scanning, after symbol marking, and so forth. And as I recall, it required approximately, or grosso modo, which is Italian accounting, about 1,500 stores with $60,000 of sales or more, and about 75% source symbol mark or manufacturer symbol mark. And if you did that, you were clearly in the black, and it justified continuing the project. Now, the Battelle test I mentioned, at this point, when we took all the things that we had learned, the alternatives, the symbols that look like were going to make it to the final period were primarily the bullseye and semi-circular bullseye and the barcodes. The color barcodes looked like it was just impossible, and the OCR required so much precision that was not going to work. And so we were getting, in our deliberations, we were getting down to many fewer alternatives. And again, the model was important because we plugged into the model and did parametric analysis of each variation to help us not only ensure that there was sufficient ROI to proceed, but also helped us select among the symbols.